Here's a sobering thought. Kalin, imagine watching your 11-year-old son die in a train accident, then having to lead an increasingly divided nation just 2 months later. That's precisely what happened to Franklin Pierce, setting the stage for one of the most tragic presidencies in American history.
That's such a devastating way to begin a presidency, Pappy. I've read that his wife Jane believed it was divine punishment for his political ambitions.
Well, you have to understand that this wasn't even their first tragedy. They'd already lost two other sons before that. Their first died just days after birth, and their second died of typhus at age 4. By the time Pierce entered the White House, he was essentially a broken man.
Hmm. And yet he had such a promising start. I mean, he was called Handsome Frank, went to Bowdoin College with Nathaniel Hawthorne, and became the youngest U.S. senator at the time.
That's right. And speaking of Hawthorne, there's this fascinating detail about their friendship. Even after Pierce's presidency was considered a disaster, Hawthorne remained loyal, dedicating his final book to Pierce, a move that could have harmed his own reputation.
So, what exactly made his presidency such a catastrophe? I mean, beyond the personal tragedies,
The Kansas Nebraska Act of 1854 was probably the most significant disaster. Pierce supported this bill that basically threw out the Missouri Compromise, which had kept some kind of peace over the slavery issue for 3 decades. Instead, they introduced this concept of popular sovereignty.
oh, right, Pappy, that's when they let the territories decide for themselves about slavery, which sounds democratic but turned into a complete nightmare.
Exactly. Kalin, it led to what they called Bleeding Kansas. You had pro slavery and anti slavery settlers literally killing each other over control of the territory. And Pierce consistently sided with the pro slavery faction, even when they were clearly the aggressors.
And this was a northern president from New Hampshire, which must have seemed like a betrayal to his own region.
You know what made it worse? His zealous enforcement of the Fugitive Slave Act. Here's this northern president actively helping slave catchers drag escaped slaves back to bondage. It's no wonder the anti slavery movement gained so much strength during his presidency.
Well, at least he managed one positive achievement with the Gadsden Purchase, right? And
Even that was controversial. The purchase was mainly motivated by the desire to build a southern transcontinental railroad route that would benefit slave states. It's as if everything he touched was somehow connected to the slavery issue.
then there was that embarrassing situation with Cuba.
Oh man, the Ostend Manifesto, that was a diplomatic disaster. Pierce's administration basically wrote this secret document saying that if Spain wouldn't sell us Cuba, we'd be justified in taking it by force, all to add another slave territory to the Union.
That's absolutely wild. And when it became public, it must have been humiliating.
It was, and you have to remember this was all happening while Pierce was struggling with severe alcohol issues. There are accounts of him being noticeably drunk at public functions, which had been a problem even before the presidency. The stress of the job, combined with his personal tragedies, must have made that so much worse. So much worse that his own Democratic Party wouldn't even nominate him for a second term. And then during the Civil War, he became one of Lincoln's harshest critics, which made him incredibly unpopular in the North.
That's such a stark contrast to how his presidency began. In his inaugural address, he actually predicted the slavery question wouldn't be an issue during his administration.
You know what's really fascinating? Pierce's story illustrates how being overly committed to compromise can sometimes make things worse. Every time he tried to appease the South, he just ended up inflaming tensions even more.
It really makes you think about leadership during times of moral crisis. Sometimes there isn't a middle ground.
Exactly, Pappy. And that's really the ultimate lesson of Pierce's presidency. In times of fundamental moral conflict, trying to find middle ground between right and wrong often makes things worse. Sometimes leadership requires taking a clear moral stand, even if it's difficult or unpopular.
So, in the end, Kalin, we're left with this tragic figure. Personally likable but politically disastrous, well meaning but fundamentally wrong on the significant moral issue of his time.
And perhaps that's why his story remains relevant today. It reminds us that personal charm and good intentions aren't enough. Real leadership requires moral clarity and the courage to act on it, especially during times of national crisis.